Michael, how are you?
Good, yeah, Ger, yeah.
We should talk.
Can I just coin, like, you boys are talking about a 5K. What have you been doing for the last 20 years? Genuinely.
Sitting on our holes. What do you think, Michael? Some of us are not born with the athletic genes, you know. Anyway, that's Nathan complaining about the 5K. We're complaining about a 20K cycle, so...
20K cycle is tame enough now, too, in fairness.
It's great.
It is, yeah. We shouldn't be complaining at all.
Yeah.
Owen doesn't think he's going to make it, though.
I think he'll be okay.
I'm not complaining about it.
I'm not sure. You haven't seen him on a bike.
I'm just sitting back and just gonna enjoy whatever happens. To be honest with you, just here for a bit of experience.
We should talk about TJ Reid because it wasn't quite a one-man performance, but it wasn't far off it either. Like, are Kilkenny actually a little bit back, or are they further away than we thought? Because Galway chose not to try and go man-to-man against TJ, and you wonder if a better team later in the championship will do that, and that'll be the end of Kilkenny one way or another.
Yeah, they're not too far away. Over the last couple of years, particularly 16, 17, 18, he's usually been man-marked. And if even Limerick man-marked him in Nowlan Park 2 years ago. And if he's curtailed somewhat, they can be in a bit of trouble. But it's so hard to curtail him. You know what I mean? And there is a bit more around him now than there was. And even Richie Hogan came on yesterday and wasn't probably on point. If he was on point, they could have won the game. Do you know? But Bill Sheehan and Billy Ryan and a couple of other lads are contributing around him. There's more dangers around him probably than there was. Wally Walsh wasn't there yesterday either. Another massive danger. So it's hard to because if you man-mark him, you're going kind of 5-on-5 with the other 5. And there's more dangers there within that 5 than I think there was.
Okay, so... was that a quantum leap forward then from where Kilkenny had been? Are they suddenly feeling a good bit confident about themselves? So the way this works out for them is that they end up not being more than likely in a Leinster final. Is that more than likely what's going to happen at this stage?
If they beat Wexford,
they're straight through to the final.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
You know, so that's a huge game. I think Kilkenny probably go there. They'll feel aggrieved yesterday, to be honest. Like, the 4 minutes of injury time was laughable, really. It was 4 minutes and 10. I think it was 2 minutes from when TJ got a free and then put the free over, which is just bananas, like, really, like. And it's easy for the referee to say, oh, I said 4, I played 4, but the ball was in play about 90 seconds. So they'll feel aggrieved but confident going in next weekend. They're going to have to be. I saw Wexford on Saturday night. They haven't blown me away or anything yet, and even struggled in the first half against Carlow the other night. So there's not going to be much in it, but I still would fancy Kilkenny and even to get through to a Leinster final.
So the other permutation is Galway are already through, is that right? Or do Galway still need to beat Dublin?
They need to get a result against Dublin to make sure of it, but more than likely they are through, yeah. Just back to TJ again for a second.
Yeah.
I actually marked TJ when he made his debut. Richie Hogan made his debut in 2008, so I was on him for his debut and ran around after him for 55 minutes, which was tough. And then this fresh 6'2" absolute animal came on to me and just ran everywhere, and I think he hit a point, but that's 11 years ago now. And it's just he's an animal in every aspect, skills-wise, physically. There's nothing he doesn't have.
Yeah.
And something I saw yesterday, which I kind of seen it a few times, but he's so good at planting his feet.
That was it.
Yeah, he's just so good at planting his feet. You think he's going to turn left, right, plants his feet, and gets a free shot at goal. He's an unbelievable.
He caught a puck out yesterday with 2 Galway lads around him. He runs towards his own goal, stops, and kind of reverses, and the 2 lads keep going.
Yeah.
It's like a comedy act.
Yeah.
And just pivots and turns, and it's like, it is a completely free shot at that point.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things I've ever seen in any sport.
Yeah.
Like, it was that good. It was so individual, and there was no one else around him, and you kind of, because everybody's going the same direction, and he completely fooled them just by his movement. It's like...
people talk about, like, speed work and acceleration. His ability to decelerate unbelievably quickly. He just goes from like 10 to 0 almost in one go, and the momentum kind of brings players past him.
Yeah.
He's actually very unlucky with the last ball that he got. He slipped, and if he hadn't slipped, the ball probably would have been down the far end of the field, and they could have probably worked another score.
Yeah, because he was actually back chasing, and I think did he win the ball back? Or certainly he was happy enough to go out and fight for it anyway.
That's the thing about him as well. He's all the talent, physically brilliant, but he's probably one of the best foragers we've seen in the game. Like, he works phenomenally hard all over the field.
You would hope for his sake that Kilkenny can get back to a level that they've been at for the last couple of years, because, you know, that current Tipperary team versus this current Kilkenny team, it'll be interesting to see if they meet later on in the championship what happens. You would make Tip significant favourites for that at the moment. Like,
you would, to be fair.
Favourites.
Looking at the Kilkenny bench though yesterday was very, very encouraging, because it's been the opposite of the last couple of years. Yeah, Joey Holden, who was a bit he was probably a bit jittery coming back from a layoff. You had Killian Buckley, you had John Donnelly, you had Richie Hogan. You had experienced faces. That's not been the case in the last couple of years. So they're going to get better to me the longer it goes on.
Okay, so what about Galway? Where did that come from?
Well, it's always been there. It's always been there. But like Carl Mannion, we all know how talented he is. He comes into the Tony Kelly mode in the sense that he just roves around picking up loose ball. He has to be man marked, because if he gets a ball anywhere 100 yards in, he can score. But there was other men stood up as well. Conor Wheelan off limited supply was brilliant. Brian Concannon, who hadn't done much realistically in the last 2 years, delivered a big performance yesterday as well. And like I was kind of getting ready to say, geez, it's mad putting Adrian Tootie wing forward, but he delivered 2 points as well. And they were hanging on at the end. They were hanging on.
Didn't score for the last 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Even after the sending off, there was sending offs as well, which we'd have to talk about as well, which I think Hurling has gone mad with how easily yellow cards are dished out as well. But Galway were hanging on, and the difference between winning and a draw is huge for them. You could see the relief etched all over their faces after.
It's interesting looking at Galway and how they live up to expectations since winning the All-Ireland, because you look at that Leinster final last year. Before that, I thought they were a far better team to Kilkenny. Kilkenny get a replay out of it. Like, you look at the All-Ireland final last year, everybody knows what happened there. You look at the Wexford game, granted Wexford's inaccuracy probably ended up in the draw in the end. If Wexford had been a bit more accurate in the first half, they might have won that game. So Galway, despite the fact that they were so much better in the first half, ended up getting out of there with a draw. Then yesterday they only win by a point. Like, I know they're back, and it seemed like they were back yesterday, and they still have Joe Canning to come back. I do wonder, with that tail off at the end of the game yesterday, is there a question mark around Galway still in terms of how they're able to see these things through?
Massive question mark. If you look, they went well up against Clare in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. Actually, well up against Kilkenny in the Leinster final replay. That turned into a dogfight. Well up against Clare in the drawn game. Draw. Well up against Clare in the replay, it turned into an absolute, like, a titanic clash that had no need to be. Yesterday was the same as well. It's kind of fits and starts. When they're good, they're very good. When they're bad, they just don't seem to be putting scores on the board. Yeah, so like, there definitely is still worries about them, without a doubt. Yeah, and like, Joe coming back is one thing. How fit he's going to be when he comes back is another thing, you know. So there's definitely still question marks about them. They were just breathing a sigh of relief. You could see them after yesterday. It was just sheer relief, you know.
What's going to happen next weekend then? What do you think is going to happen? Kilkenny beat Wexford in a narrow game. Galway beat Dublin. That's in Parnell Park.
Yeah. That's very simplistic, but I would imagine so. Yeah. Kilkenny are playing well, like, and you have to admire the fact that, like, they shouldn't have been in that game in injury time. They really shouldn't have been. Through Galway's maybe deficiencies, but combine that with Kilkenny, they just don't stop. They never stop. They go down to Wexford Park next week, I'd say, with a fair degree of confidence. They've struggled with the sweeper before, and they've struggled down there before. It'd be interesting to see Wexford. I'm not too sure. They'll probably put Matt Hanlon on TJ Reid and try and tie him up. But that's easier said than done. I think they'll just get through by a score or two down there. Galway the same as well. Galway coming into Parnell on after a defeat or a deflating draw would have been a different story now.
Yeah.
You'd imagine they'd just have enough. There was talks of Joe being rushed back for next weekend. Probably won't be now. I'd say they look at the bigger picture, because there wouldn't have been a bigger picture if they hadn't won yesterday.
No, so they don't need Canning back. He could be a sub and he could come on for a little bit at the end, just to kind of see what that fitness levels are like and see what work he needs to do. But so that would mean that Wexford would go through. No, so who goes?
Yeah,
through?
if Galway beat Dublin are gone.
Yeah, so Dublin need to win.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So Wexford should probably sneak through. Yeah. Even saying that, there's a possibility that they could, would say, even draw. I think, or they could lose one game in Leinster and be gone completely.
Yeah.
If Dublin beat Galway. So yeah, it's the calculators will definitely be out. Wexford did themselves no harm score difference wise now the other night, now in fairness, putting 15 up. Yeah,
because they weren't great in the first half, were they?
No, they were poor.
Or were Carlo good in the first half? Is that a more accurate reflection?
No, Wexford were 1-7-3 up after the first quarter and just kind of switched off, stopped working. They only scored 3 points for the remainder of the half. And just interestingly, I actually wrote in it today, I was kind of hanging around for interviews after, and Davy had done his interviews and was actually just waiting for Colin Bonner. And it was about half an hour after the match, and Davy was going to town. You could just hear him. I suppose it was a sense that we got this result, and it's just like, everything is on next week now, and like if the walls could talk. I couldn't hear exactly what I was saying, but you could hear that.
Just the noise.
Yeah. So you're just getting them ready for next weekend. Sure, their eggs are in that big basket next weekend.
What's the story with Clare? Because pre-championship, people thought Clare were going to be realistic contenders, that they were in the long grass, according to some pundits, and they've been tipping away, and they've got Tony Kelly in a right frame of mind / position. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they have just been fairly abysmal.
They look like a team that have been totally overcoached, and they just seem to be overanalyzing everything. There's no simplicity, or nothing is off the cuff with them. Everything seems to be really regimented. Even like the puckouts, it just looks like there's too much thought going into it in a way. They have Peter Duggan, who's brilliant under high ball. They have the potential to bring in John Conlon out, and everything was short, and it just looked like chaos everywhere, really. And the Tony Kelly thing is, when he's getting on the ball, it's great, but like he was on the ball 6-7 times yesterday, and looked kind of short of confidence anytime he was on the ball as well. But saying that, they could have had 3 early goals, and the game could have been a little bit different. But Peter Duggan was the only scorer, I think, up until 43rd or 44th minute yesterday. That's in an attack with Shane O'Donnell, Tony Kelly, John Conlon, Aaron Shanter as well. Like they're in big trouble.
Yesterday's encounter could have been a repeat of last year's All-Ireland final. Like, really, Clare could feel aggrieved to not make it to the All-Ireland last year. So how did they go from that place to being overcoached this year with the same management?
Well, to be fair, last year, I think it was Brendan Bugler actually did a column, I think it was with AIB or something last year, and he kind of said, he got a bit of stick over it actually, where he said he just couldn't handle, as a married man with kids, like these video sessions for like 2 hours after training. And that from talking to people, that just seems to be a paralysis by analysis a bit much. Like, you could not say that Clare are playing off the cuff, and everything is structured. It's kind of like there's plays, everything is, there's no, how should we say, there's no kind of creativity or anything to what they're doing. Everything is so regimented. I wouldn't say it's as simplistic as saying it's happened in the space of a year.
Sure.
Galway kind of turned off against them twice last year. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I would look at it a bit more. So, like, while they played very, very well last year, they played the sweeper against Galway at different stages last year. And I've just been surprised to see it again from the start. It's a good tactic to implement during a game if you're in trouble, but they've been implementing it from the start in games, and like really good teams now, the Limericks, the Tips, can play around that now. I don't think it's an effective tactic to start with and hope to win a big game with.
So what happens next for Clare?
Try and pull a big result out against Cork, but it's very unlikely.
It's almost impossible to see that happening. So, like,
it is in Ennis now as well, though, which is I know they were. It should. That doesn't seem to be any advantage this year. It's the complete opposite narrative to last year.
Yeah, the small sample size from last year was just a small sample size.
You would hope that they get a reaction at home based on what we've seen with Waterford. It's probably not a given.
Yeah.
Like, just on that as well, like with Waterford as well. Waterford and Clare beat Waterford by a point, and everyone's like, yeah, Clare, it's a good result, they just held on or whatever. But like in horse racing terms, the form has worked out absolutely terribly.
Yeah, it turned out that was a game of intermediate hurling as opposed to senior hurling, really. And I don't know what the hell has happened to Waterford that they've gone back so badly as well. Like, are both management teams in the hot seat this winter? Is that likely to be something that we see changed, or are Clare going to double down and say, look, you guys have come through that underage setup, you were so spectacularly successful, we understand that this is going to be a period of evolution, and let's see what happens next year?
Well, on Clare, you'd have to wait till next weekend to see, but there was some doubt about whether they'd come back this year. So it's one thing doubling down on being in a positive position, and you're thinking, yeah, we're close. Like last year, we're close, we're not far off. If they're beating 4 or 5 points by Cork at the weekend, like, what are you doubling down on? Do you know what I mean? Like,
but you can see Cork giving them a hiding as well, can't you? Like,
I wouldn't say a hiding, but I could see Cork winning by 5 or 6, all right, yeah. So then you're doubling down on a bad situation, really, and a terrible year. If you look at, they were annihilated by Waterford in the league quarter-final, annihilated by Tip, annihilated by Limerick. And if Cork beat them as well, I wouldn't say there's any place for them to go management-wise, really. Like, how do you go committing to a 4th year then? In my opinion, Waterford is different. Pádraig Fanning's situation, there's some similarities with Derek McGrath's first year, but there was probably a bit more optimism in Derek McGrath's first year than Pádraig Fanning's. and people are talking about like getting rid of some bodies and maybe a bit of a clear out in Waterford. I'm not sure there's many to clear out, and what you're bringing in is as good as what you're clearing out.
Yeah, okay. All right. In terms of where we stand now, it looks like there's a clear hierarchy of Tipperary better than everybody else, and everybody else or Tipperary and Limerick rather better than everybody else, and everybody else trying to make it up to them.
Yeah, kind of at the moment, to be honest. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting kind of dynamic with Tip and Limerick. There's a fair chance they could play again in the Munster final,
and again the All-Ireland final,
and again possibly, yeah. So I don't think Limerick will be. I don't think either of them will be holding back. To be honest with you, there's a lot to be said for when you're going well to keep going well. Whereas if you kind of take your foot off or anything like that, then you're chasing form again. If you're going well, I don't buy into the argument that you can be going too well at all.
If you're Tip, are you in any way worried about the fact that you've got to beat a team 3 times over the course of the year, and that your panel is so big that you might want to because they know exactly what's going on, they're definitely going to be playing in the Munster final. Do they change the team significantly? Rest a few players if anybody's got a little bit of a niggle or a knock?
I'd say they bring in 1 or 2 bodies, but I don't think there'll be anything too major, to be honest with you. They're going well and will want to stay going well. They're already in the Munster final, but I don't think Liam Sheedy would be worried about, that's all ponderables or possibilities that they could have to beat them. This is the one game in front of them. If they do beat them, they won't be playing them again in the Munster final. So
maybe that's the value, is it?
Yeah, but Limerick finished in 3rd would be, I think John Kiley would be happy enough with that too.
Yeah.
Based on last year, and they'll probably get a soft kind of preliminary quarter final and then come into the quarter final as well. So, but I don't think Limerick will be holding back either.
No, it feels like Limerick are more likely to want this game just that little bit more, given that they kind of. Does that not make the most sense?
Yeah,
in a weird way?
Just because they got a kick in the arse the first weekend, obviously, and want to keep things going again. Just on Limerick as well, that's been beaten in the first game after, an unbelievable league where they sailed through. Is kind of an ideal scenario for them. The All-Ireland champions, while they do have a point to prove, they have a real point to prove now. Everyone is saying, okay, Limerick are beaten now, will they be able to react? That just seems like a different type of group. That just seems like a group that love a challenge, love the chance of creating history, and they'll want to win a Munster, and I think they'll really want to get to a Munster final now as well. So for them to get beaten in the first game was probably a perfect scenario for them.
Yeah, and they came out of their shell even more when the season was essentially on the line yesterday. It actually struck me listening to John Kiley afterwards. You probably picked up on it plenty of times before, just how he speaks so like Jim Gavin in terms of it's all about the team, we're focused on next week. Granted, he's a bit more bullish than Jim Gavin usually is afterwards yesterday.
A bit more eloquent about it as well.
Yeah, he was clearly delighted with it. But I do wonder if there's also elements of his values in terms of humility, in terms of squad mentality that comes through in this team that allows them to step up when it really matters, like it did yesterday.
Yeah, no, I think so, yeah. Anytime I've talked to John, he's a thoroughly impressive character. And the way he talks to the lads is kind of the way the lads would talk to us when they're post-match interviews or any kind of promotion things that they're doing. They just seem to. There's a couple of little things that, little kind of bullet points almost that he passes on to them. Say Limerick won their first league game this year in the Gaelic grounds, and Dermot Burns was outstanding. His man of the match after was this is our first Division 1 league game in the Gaelic grounds in about 10 years. We wanted to win this. There's a goal every time. There's something to work towards. It's never another game. And I think John has kind of passed that mentality on to them. They're a really impressive side, and Dan Morrissey was dropped yesterday. So their half back line is unbelievably impressive. And then they have him to come in as well. Nobody can rest on their laurels anywhere in the field. They just have too many good players ready to come in all over the pitch. So they're in a really good situation, whether they get to a Munster final or where they come through in 3rd. I think they're going to be hard beaten. Everyone talks about how hard it is to defend the title. They will go close. I don't think they'll win it, but they will go very, very close.
One last thing, black card in hurling, do you think it's a good idea?
No, I don't think it is. I think that's an overreaction on one game. I was actually only thinking about it Saturday night because I did a piece about 9 months ago after Schlockneil were beaten by Napirshig in an All-Ireland Club semi-final in Parnell Park in February 2018, and there was a couple of pullbacks maybe when lads were going through on goal, and Carol McCaig said after that a black card should be brought in, and there's literally been no talk about it since. That's 16 months ago, and then we're basing it all on one game. I think it's I think it's bizarre kind of talk, yeah. I do think that yellow cards are dished out far too early, too easily in hurling. Like, say Ger Aylward's second yellow card yesterday, and it drives me bananas. Because if a corner forward hits me, I'm gonna hit my shoulder or whatever. The simple thing is, umpires put the hand up, referee comes in, 2 boys ratted in there, give them both yellows. I didn't actually do anything. It's like Ger Aylward didn't really do anything yesterday. Like, if he'd been tripped and hadn't went back at his man, he'd be almost deemed like cowardly. So, like,
did it look like he had a hand around the? I think that was
ever so slightly. And that was ever so slightly.
I agree with you. It was slight, but that's, I'd say, what that was given for. Even though that's not really yellow, that's supposed to be.
It was literally like that.
It was like he realised straight away. It's like, oh, I'm in trouble if I do that, and then
Is it too easy to be somebody in the full back line, seeing somebody come through and pull them down?
In what sense?
As in, it's not really that much of a consequence. As in, it's going to be TJ Reid tapping the ball over the bar. Whereas, if somebody's coming at you one-on-one and you know you're going to be sent off for the remainder of the game, are you less likely to pull that person down? And by extension, you'll get yourself into a situation where the game sees more goal-scoring chances.
Well, see, like Paul Murphy's yesterday. Paul Murphy stopped a certain goal-scoring chance when he pulled down Jason Flynn at the start. He couldn't take down Conor Whelan because he was going to get sent off. So, like, is it too easy to pull a man down? I don't think so. Not at inter-county level. It's actually more difficult to take a man down than you think as well. And there are consequences to it. Paul Murphy, the consequences weren't direct at that time when he could have taken Conor Whelan down, but they were later on in the game when he got a deserved red, in my view, to be fair. He wrapped his 2 hands around him and made no attempt to play the ball. But I think there are consequences to it. Like, taking a card or anything like that is really, really dangerous now. If it's late in a game, it's a little different. You're willing to take the consequences. But early in a game, no. It's too big of a kind of an obstacle for your team to overcome if you're down a man, you know?
All right, Michael, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning.